There are some weeks, like these past two, when I feel like this job is all that is saving me from holing up in my condo and spending the rest of my life reading books and watching HBO. I just don't want to deal with the world anymore. Hurricanes, fires, earthquakes, refugees, terrorists, government shenanigans. Close the door. Shut them out. Enough. Good luck with that. I am checking out. But then I have to preach to you. Like almost every Sunday. Not only that, I have to give you good news, something to hold on to in the midst of these calamities. And I have to do it in not a fake way, with authenticity, for God's sake. I have to believe what I'm saying, or else it's, in my book, a lie. It's easy to be authentic when you pretty much believe everything, that good will triumph over evil, that there's a reason for our suffering, that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. But I live in the real world, and I've seen evidence to the contrary. And so I want you to feel sorry for me, please, while I stand here and rant for a moment. Okay, I'm done now. And yet, as I said, sometimes this job is all that is saving me from despair, because I do have to show up for you. I am responsible for my flock, and darned if I don't love you and truly want to help us all through these dark days. I can't just close the door on the world because you're in it too. And so I grapple each week with the hopelessness of life. I pan for little gold nuggets to bring back to you and say, see, this might help us a little. So thank you for keeping me on the right track. Thank you for your faithfulness, your hopefulness, and your trust in me. And don't ever let a cranky rector's attitude snuff out that little light of yours, because your light helps me to see, helps us all to see in this darkness we're all living through. Today's readings are bursting with some great opportunities for preaching. The Syrophoenician woman who stands up to Jesus. The letter of James, blunt as all get out, declaring faith without works is dead. And Proverbs, blessing those who share their bread with the poor. But what caught my eye was a phrase from today's collect. You never forsake those who make their boast of your mercy. And its twin phrase near the end of James's letter, mercy triumphs over judgment. I want to say something about that. Have any of you ever seen the movie Dead Man Walking 20 years ago? Good. It's based on a true story and stars Susan Sarandon as Sister Helen Prejean, a Roman Catholic nun and activist working to abolish the death penalty. She starts visiting a man incarcerated on death row, played by Sean Penn, whose crime was killing a teenaged couple. This guy is a nasty human being, arrogant, sexist, racist, who insists he's innocent, truly unlikable. But finally, at the movie's end, in part because Sister Helen continually visits and shows him unconditional love, he breaks down, admits his guilt, and is offered a sort of redemption in that he gets to look into the eyes of Sister Helen, the eyes of love, through a glass wall as he's electrocuted. In speaking of such experiences, Sister Prejean said in an NPR interview, I couldn't let them die alone. Well, I hated the movie when I saw it. I could not forgive the man. I did not want redemption visited upon him when he'd been such a slime ball through most of the film. The movie actually made me angry. I knew I was sort of wrong to feel that way, that the message we were supposed to take away was that we all deserve to be looked upon, at least for one moment in our lives, with the eyes of unconditional love. But I didn't believe at the time that forgiveness should come that easily. Suffering was required, and more of it, the worse your sin. I wish I'd known the letter of James at that time. Wish I had read the phrase, mercy triumphs over judgment. When you stop to think about it, you're going to want to really hope that's true of God, that mercy triumphs over judgment. Because frankly, if it hasn't already, there will come a time in each of our lives when we're going to need a mercy we may not deserve. And so I think one bit of good news in today's readings is that God is merciful to us. And so we must show mercy to others. Is there someone in your life from whom you are withholding mercy, even if it's just in your heart? Surely I'm not the only one here who secretly smiled upon hearing that Governor Abbott of Texas, Mr. Anti-Mask Mandates, came down with the virus? Well, here's what I think is true. Mercy does triumph over judgment in the courts of God. But if you haven't shown mercy to others while expecting it for yourself, you commit an injustice. And as James warns us in his letter, judgment will be without mercy to anyone who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. There was an article in last Monday's New York Times about a man on death row in Texas named John Henry Ramirez, scheduled to die by lethal injection on September 8th, this coming Wednesday. This guy did a terrible thing in 2004. In Corpus Christi, drunk and high, looking for someone to rob, he came upon a young man taking out the trash at a convenience store and stabbed him 29 times. What he found in the man's pockets for his trouble was $1.25. Ramirez has admitted his guilt and takes responsibility for his crime, the poverty. There's a lot of people that live like that, and even worse, and they didn't end up on death row, he reflects. But he is also suing the federal prison where he's incarcerated because they refused to let his Baptist minister lay hands on him at the moment of his death. It would just be comforting, he says, to have Mr. Dana Moore, his pastor for over 4 years, pray out loud, hold his hand, or touch his shoulder or his foot. The state's response is that strict restrictions in the execution chamber are a security matter, and this would open the door to ever more burdensome religious requests. Now, contrary to some jokes you might have heard, prisoners on death row rarely experience any kind of physical touch. The only exception being when guards place handcuffs on their wrists. To not have anyone touch you, or hug you, or scratch your back, or hold your hand for years and years just seems inhuman. I mean, I get it. The man he killed will never experience that again either. But I find Mr. Ramirez's simple request poignant in the final seconds of his life to be touched and regarded. It means so much that he's willing to sue the state for that to those who make their boast of your mercy. He knows he's going to die. He feels he deserves it, but he boasts that even I can receive it. And his spiritual twin is that siren. And so may we one day have reason to boast of God's mercy in her, and that everyone else does too. Will not triumph over evil, at least not in our lifetime. Maybe there truly is no reason for our suffering. But if we're going to get through this time of darkness, it cannot be by holding ourselves up from the world and its woes, by only doing what makes us feel good or safe. getting through these dark days is to look upon each other through the eyes of love, and resolve to reach grasping those hands we'd prefer not to touch, and locking eyes with those we'd rather not see. Amen.